Now, if all goes according to plan, Kenya plans to start exporting roughly 2,000 barrels of crude oil every day in the second half of 2017. Now, Tullow Oil argues that the early oil pilot scheme will provide useful information for future full field development, assuming, of course, it does get approval for its proposals from both national and county governments. But given the oversupply of crude in the global market and the significant wax content of Kenyan oil, how can these early exports possibly be profitable? That's a question I put to one of the plan's critics, Charles Wanguhu.
Our report looks at two scenarios. We start at 2,000 and you look at 4,000. At 4,000, if you look at 4,000 barrels of oil per day, and then if the price goes up to as high as 56, then there's a small margin there that could possibly, government could possibly get some revenue from. And that revenue is we are being very optimistic by looking at around a figure of $9 million US for that amount. Yeah.
There was something else that cropped up though. When we talk about oil, this market is currently oversupplied. That's the long and the short of it. OPEC has been pumping tons and tons of oil into the market for the last 2 years. So in this sort of environment, if you're a small bit player like Kenya coming in and saying, we'd like to sell you 2,000 barrels a day of our waxy, very difficult to process crude, when the Nigerians have got far better quality crude that's lying around that they could sell to refiners, who's going to buy our crude?
And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. One of the things we asked in our questions from government officials was, where will you be taking this oil? And in their own admission, they said, well, we are still looking for a market for it. So we find that that would be the first challenge, them actually getting a refiner that will be willing to take it, and the discount that they'll get on that. So we were very optimistic by using an $8 discount, right? It could be as high as 10 or 12 in this current market, right? Because like you said, like you mentioned, other countries are there with crude lining up. So you come up with your waxy crude, and then because of the volumes as well, it's only 2,000 barrels. So we're going to wait for maybe up to 6 months so that we get a 200,000 barrel tanker to now get it to market. And then you'll be asking a refinery to calibrate their refinery to actually accept our crude. So, I mean, you'd be struggling to actually make any returns.
There's a couple of interesting things you mentioned there. But let me go back to 2008, because this idea cropped up the first time in 2008. And this was same company, Tullow, but in Uganda. Cropped up in 2008, cropped up again in 2010. In both instances, the plan went absolutely nowhere. Why did it die in Uganda? Because it would seem, at face value anyway, Uganda's landlocked. They would have to move this exclusively by rail or road or combination of the two. The logistical challenge just becomes much, much bigger.
Yeah, and the Ugandan part, of course, firstly, it's that it's a longer distance. From Lokicha to Mombasa, we're talking about 1,000 kilometers. So from Hoima to Mombasa, then
that's virtually double.
Yeah, so it's a very long distance to move it, but also the economics. And again, I think we believe in our interviews with some of the Ugandan officials that the economics just didn't make any sense. Economics, at the end of the day, trumps everything. There will be no investor who's willing to put in money to lose money, basically.